Focus this morning, the outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump has announced on Twitter that he has fired the Defense Secretary Mark Esper. He also announced that the director of the National Counter-Terrorism Center, that is Christopher Miller, will become the acting secretary effective immediately. Now, with this move, Trump has indicated that he will use his final weeks in office to settle scores within his administration. Trump and Esper did not agree on a range of issues, and Trump was particularly angered by Esper's opposition to threats to use active-duty military officers to suppress Black Lives Matter protests that took place in the aftermath of the custodial killing of George Floyd. Democrats are alarmed by Trump's move. They said that the decision has now sent a dangerous message to America's adversaries and dimmed the hopes for an orderly transition as the president-elect Joe Biden prepares to take office. Miller reportedly arrived at the Pentagon building even before an official statement acknowledging Esper's dismissal was issued. Reports suggest that Esper had been preparing for his resignation or dismissal following the election. However, nobody saw this move coming. Political experts say that Trump's firing through Twitter was typical of his whole presidency. Remember, he sent out the sacking notice on his Twitter profile. Experts also caution of danger for top health expert Anthony Fauci, who has time and again clashed with Trump over his flawed response to COVID-19.
Don't know what they're doing. They should have had their own administrations also taking bold action to help American workers on Friday. Everything that the governors wanted, and in many cases it's too much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things, and then I just want to make a comment about something that happened yesterday.
Now, for more insights into Trump's recent move, WION's correspondent Jagriti Dave joins us live from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Jagriti. Now, as expected, Donald Trump is making some shocking and high-profile decisions in his remaining days in office. Experts say that the sacking of Mark Esper through Twitter is just the beginning of the controversial decisions that Trump will take in the coming weeks. So tell us more about the reasons for this decision and what the new appointment means.
Well, the reason for this decision is partly in order to, remove people who he feels aren't completely loyal to him in the remaining days that he have in this transition that he's not actually still accepting as a transition period. Remember, he's also had perhaps not the smoothest relationship with his Defense Secretary, Mark Esper. He has disagreed, that Mark Esper has disagreed with Donald Trump on the use of military in the protests over the summer, in the anti-racist, anti-police brutality protests that hit cities across the United States. He thought that the military should only be used as a last resort and that instance was not it. So that was one reason. Another reason is that Mark Esper disagreed with the president on the removal of Confederate named bases, military bases, the removal of the Confederate names. So those are the sorts of instances where President Trump and Mark Esper have disagreed. And this is clearly one of those moves where the president is, as I say, removing out those who aren't sort of completely, he sees as completely loyal.
Right. Now, Jagriti, Trump is still refusing to concede and more radical executive orders are expected. So what happens if Trump refuses to concede in the first place?
Well, it's unclear really what happens. I mean, there are suggestions that there are some within his inner circle who are trying to persuade him to concede. But, there's Rudy Giuliani and Senator Lindsey Graham who are out saying that the president should absolutely pursue these legal challenges, even though there's no suggestion that that there is any merit to the legal challenges, and that there is no evidence, according to many of the judges who have looked at some of the lawsuits that the Trump campaign has already presented to them, as well as officials in the various states. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. So if President Trump continues in this vein, I mean, there's a report in Axios which suggests that the president is going to continue doubling down, refusing to concede, disputing the results. Perhaps some rallies might be planned in the upcoming weeks to continue to undermine the Biden-Harris administration.
Right. All right, Jagriti, stay with us right now on this broadcast. We'd also like you to weigh in on another announcement coming from President-elect Joe Biden, of course. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden said that fighting the coronavirus remains his top priority. In an address, Biden said that vaccine trials have increased and that the U.S. might soon have a vaccine candidate. The statement came as the U.S. President-elect convened a task force to devise a blueprint for tackling the public health crisis.
And we just received positive news in this fight with the announcement that there's been progress made toward a successful vaccine. Soon, the expectation is the FDA will run a process of rigorous reviews and approvals. And the process must also be grounded in science and fully transparent so the American people can have every confidence that any approved vaccine is safe and effective.
Biden also urged Americans to wear a mask, saying that it was not a political issue, but one related to safety amid the rising number of COVID-19 cases.
I implore you, wear a mask. Do it for yourself. Do it for your neighbor. A mask is not a political statement, but it is a good way to start pulling the country together. I want to be very clear. We're still facing a very dark winter. There are now nearly 10 million COVID cases in the United States. And last week, we topped 120,000 new cases on multiple successive days. Infection rates are going up, hospitalizations are going up, deaths are going up. This crisis claims nearly 1,000 American lives a day, and nearly 240,000 deaths so far.
Now, our correspondent Jagrati Dave is still with us from Washington, D.C. Jagrati, weigh in on this. We're already seeing a stark difference between the two presidencies. Joe Biden has said that his main priority remains tackling the coronavirus pandemic. He has also said that all Americans must wear a face mask. Wearing a face mask is not a political statement, already a stark difference when compared to Donald Trump. So tell us more about the challenges that the Biden-Harris administration will face.
Yes, well, you know, the key challenge is, of course, controlling the rising rates of infections in the United States. As you say, the approach that that Joe Biden and the Biden transition team is taking is starkly different to that of the Trump administration, in particular the messaging. So this emphasis on wearing masks and taking the proper precautions, saying that wearing a mask is not a political activity, that it is a sort of basic scientific understanding. The emphasis on science. He's appointed his COVID transition task force, which includes some really prominent scientists and health experts. One of those is former Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy and former FDA Commissioner Dr. David Kessler. That is very the emphasis on science, I think, is what the Biden the Biden transition team is trying to emphasize, which is very different to the emphasis of the Trump administration. Although obviously with the development of in terms of the vaccine, with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which early studies have shown to be more than 90% effective, you know, the Trump administration is trying to take credit for this. Obviously, under Operation Warp Speed, the Trump administration did speed up the development of vaccines and therapeutics, etc. And so there is, but I think it's the messaging is the core thing that the Biden administration is really pushing for everyone to take personal responsibility when it comes to wearing masks.
Right, absolutely. Messaging is key here, but he also gave a message of hope in his press conference recently, which is what you just mentioned as well. He spoke of a vaccine that it's coming soon, and as we know, a new study by Pfizer and BioNTech is saying that a vaccine may be as much as 90% effective in tackling this disease. So tell us more about the development in vaccine research.
Yes, so this is early studies by Pfizer and BioNTech, which shows that the vaccine is more than 90% effective. Now, it's large-scale studies are still underway to understand the exact efficacy of this vaccine, but Pfizer hopes to apply for emergency use authorization from the FDA by the end of the month. They need to complete 2 months of studies to show to provide data across 2 months. But this is promising. Some experts and health experts are suggesting caution. There's still a lot we don't know. This is still early stages, but there's already a supply agreement that's been reached with several countries, and although the data isn't peer reviewed, it's hoped that there are the other vaccines that are in development. Remember, it's not just the Pfizer BioNTech one. There are other vaccines in development, and it's hoped that they will also yield equally positive early results.
Absolutely. All right, Jagrati, thank you so much for joining us this morning on this broadcast, and thank you for weighing in all these stories.